Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of House of the Dragon by Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario Busto, alongside
the other host, Zachary Newton. Welcome back.
We are back with Season 2, Episode 2, titled Rhaenyra the Cruel. And it was a longer than expected episode, so much so that we're recording this the next morning. And Zach, you sent me a text last night.
I did.
About how you were feeling about the show so far, and I wanted you to kind of relay that to the audience, because I feel the exact same way.
Yeah, well, I'm just super excited to be covering a show of this caliber. Like, the episode was phenomenal. Not mad at all about the runtime. Was a little longer than expected, like you said, but
Oh, dude,
worth it, dude. Worth it.
I wish every week it was like a 72-minute episode. I kept clicking it. You ever just like don't want something to end?
Yeah.
And you just keep clicking pause to see how much longer you have in it, hoping that
I kept doing that last night.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm only 40 minutes through. I'm halfway.
And then the way they ended, I'm just it's just, man. Altogether, great episode. I was expecting a fiery breakout to happen. I thought Aegon was going to do something wildly reactive to the news of his son being killed. And I was, I don't think it was very difficult to predict, but I was right about what was going to occur in terms of sort of the aftermath of Jaehaerys' death. I was very much expecting Otto to act the way he was acting. I cannot lie. I think it was very smart the way he acted to use Jaehaerys' death to pretty much win the PR battle. And you understand his frustrations in this episode where you have Aegon, the moment he does this, right? Which, by the way, I think Otto cares, but at the same time, I don't think he's all in grief or anything like that necessarily too much about it.
He cares, but he cares about the power. I don't think he cares that much about his family.
He's in war mode now, and he's always going to just see, all right, he's truly like a Tywin Lannister type, as I've said before on this show, where he's going to leverage every ounce of whatever his family goes through to better their position. Now, he does explode at Aegon at an interesting time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there would have been other opportunities to explode like this prior. And to explode at him now, so soon after his son was killed, was maybe a little short-sighted, but he really explodes when he sees that Aegon has killed every rat catcher employed by the Red Keep. Yeah. And I think deservedly so, because from Otto's perspective, he sees the big picture, right? And he says that, youth are like peacocks shrieking. He has an issue and kind of maybe resents the insolence and the immaturity, the foolishness of youth, because he's really intelligent in terms of how he does things. He crafts it perfectly. We're gonna have the Queen Dowager ride in the carriage. We're gonna have the Queen in there, and the whole city. You see, the whole city absolutely turns on a dime for the Greens, right? Yeah. And then he returns shortly after and sees my dumbass grandson has killed even though he's killed one of the killers of his son, he's killed 9 other innocent men or something like that, right? Because he killed 10 of them or something like that. Yeah. So all of his work sort of is undone, because now the same way something cruel happened to you, now you're just killing fathers, sons, brothers, uncles. You're killing innocent men to get justice, when he would have caught that guy at some point. You figure he would have caught him at some point, one way or the other, if you had to guess. But interesting timing from Otto to you just almost felt like it was going to happen, because he was going so hard that you just felt he was going to call for his badge to be removed. Yeah. But it also felt like he was just laying it out on the line. The one thing I wasn't expecting was, I was not expecting Cole to be handed the hand of the king. I thought that would have gone to like Larys. Which now kind of doesn't change my mind about Larys, but it does. We debated. We didn't think that the hand of the king was ultimately what he was after in the long run. Yeah. It could be the throne he's after. Who knows? We don't know what he's after.
The power of knowledge.
The power of knowledge. I don't know if I would put him in the altruistic category of like a Varys, for example, the eunuch, where what his ultimate motivation is, the love of the kingdom and the stability of the realm, right? And so he's gonna back whoever he thinks is gonna be the best option for that. He'll betray whoever he needs to betray. He'll do whatever he needs to do to make sure power doesn't get in the wrong hands, right? Because he wants to avoid war and wanton violence, as Allison would say.
In regards to Larys, why be king when you can play the king like a puppet and take on none of the risk?
It's, I know he whispered the poison into his ears in the last episode of how are you going to be different from your father, and do you want to be seen as weak like your father?
Yeah.
And you can see Aegon repeating that several times here. So it kind of comes out in a major way. He just needed the little catalyst of his son dying, really, in order to get him to explode like this. But were you expecting Cole to be handed the hand of the king?
I wasn't thinking about it until we got to the scene where Aegon and Cole were talking, and then Aegon asks for the badge. Like the moment he asked for the badge, I'm like, he's gonna make Cole the hand. So until that point, no, it hadn't crossed my mind at all. To be honest, I thought we were going to have like an introduction to like a new character or something like that come into play here. But I mean, I love him or hate him, and I think we know what we do. It's Cole.
I kind of think there was an interesting dynamic the writers were going for in this episode, possibly. This is my theory, and it's something that occurred to me in the middle of the episode, because I've always drawn parallels between Aemond and Daemon, right?
Yeah.
And we do get that strange Aemond in the fetal position,
very strange.
with the pretty much confiding in the whore who's pretty much acting as his mother in this role, like kind of nurturing and caring for him. It's strange to see because we only ever see the hard outer shell of Aemond, right? But he does mention that he's almost flattered that Daemon considers him such a threat that he would try to kill him in his sleep.
Yeah.
Right. He's honored by that, really. But speaking to the dynamic I noticed in this episode, I've always tried to draw the parallel between Aemond and Daemon, and it's more that Daemon's more like Aegon in a lot of ways, and kind of like this their stories sort of intertwine in this episode in a way that maybe other people may not have noticed. Whereas in the scene we just talked about where Otto explodes on Aegon, and he's pretty much calling him an insolent pup. He's saying every sort of thing. It's a masterclass by Otto in this episode. And at the end of it, Aegon says something like along the lines of, "My father wanted me king. This is why my father named me king," or something like that. And he says, "Is that what you think?" And he essentially, in that line, communicates so much more than what he's saying, which is that your father didn't want you to be king. And he essentially says your father was right about you. You should not have been king. And in that moment, you're seeing Otto almost realize like the wisdom of Viserys and the folly of his own ways to put his own heir on the throne, and maybe almost regretting it in a way in that moment. And then contrast that with what's going on with Daemon. We're talking about really the dynamic that I'm talking about is how Aegon and Daemon both misinterpreted Viserys' actions. Aegon thinks that Viserys wanted him king, so he has this arrogance about him. And Daemon also has this arrogance about him, where he believes his brother wanted to install Rhaenyra as queen because he was jealous of Daemon, jealous of his ability to lead men, jealous of his ability just to lead in general, and just in his own mindset of how he would have had a better legacy than his brother, right? Yeah. So he doesn't really see Rhaenyra as a rightful queen even. And Rhaenyra calls him out on that. And she not only calls him out on that, but she calls him out onto the true reason why Viserys did not trust his brother with the crown, which was that he just could not trust him. And so Rhaenyra is now in a similar place where she can't trust Daemon. And I keep calling him Daemon, like combining Aemond and Daemon.
Daemon. There's no D on the end of it.
There's no D on the end of it, yeah. But you can't help it. But anyways, she's in this place where she can't trust him. And so he does what he always does. He runs off. And now whether he'll stay loyal to her this time or whether he'll branch out, I think he'll stay loyal and try to go just kind of make up for it on the battlefield, which is what he usually does. We'll see. But what'd you think of the dynamic or the comparing Aegon and Daemon in this episode?
It's interesting. I don't think I saw it as much as you did necessarily. I think there are elements of both Aegon and Aemon that feel similar to Daemon. And I think the biggest crossover for me is just like the ability for both of, or all of them, all three of them, really to lose their temper rather quickly.
Yeah.
I do think Aemon seems to be a little more strategic with things at times, even though he has his outbursts. However, I haven't seen like a true plan come from Aemon that gets played out. So I don't know, like, if it's going to be, as unsuccessful as Daemon's plans tend to be here, at least in last episode. So
Aemon could be the type of guy who's like, who's like the not the middle manager, but the guy like underneath the middle manager, who's like always talking shit about the manager and what they do, and like, oh, we should do this instead, and blah, blah, blah. But then they get put in a position to lead, and they're just like, it's crickets.
Yeah.
Maybe Aemon's kind of that guy, the one who complains about the people who are leading, but he doesn't actually have a plan that he would have the balls to follow through on. Because you see him in this episode, and he's literally, by the way, he looks really scrawny in this whorehouse.
He really scrawny.
He looks like Christian Bale, like in The Machinist. Like,
yeah.
He looks sickly, skinny in this episode. It's an off-putting scene to see him like this, but I think he blames himself for everything that's going on here, in a sense, right? I mean, he starts this whole beef by letting his temper get the better of him, and it leads to a stupid mistake where Luke dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then because he's not there, because he's actually at the whorehouse, his nephew dies because the killer was after him. Yeah. And by the way, speaking of the killer being able to get to Jaehaerys, the question is brought up that I was hoping would not be glossed over, which is Aegon directly asked Criston Cole, "And where were you? Why weren't you protecting my family?"
Yeah.
And Criston Cole comes up with a pretty lame excuse of, "Oh, I put on the night watch. It was, it was over." He doesn't really answer the question of where were you. He says, "I was sleeping." He said he was abed, but if he really wanted to dig into it a little further, he could have, right? He kind of gets off a little bit easy. And I mean, Thrones does this thing, I guess. I feel like they do make unlikable characters likable, but then occasionally a character comes along, like a Ramsay, who was just unlikable till the end, right? Yeah. And Criston Cole, there's never been a character quite like Criston Cole in the Game of Thrones universe, where he starts off as you like him, right? You like him. Yeah. He's kind of this underdog contender for the Kingsguard. And he ends up being the perfect example of why you don't give power to the young, right? He becomes like this perfect example of that, in a sense. Yeah. Like, for anybody who believes that argument, right? Mm-hmm. He plays it out perfectly. He's let his passions get the better of him. He's gone from revered position to there's no absolution for what I've done, so let me just continue to do poorly. Yeah. And he's putting all of his the guilt and the blame of the things that he's done on other people besides himself. He's putting it on Rhaenyra. He's putting it on Otto, even. He's putting it on anybody but himself and Alicent and the kids, pretty much, right?
He can't take accountability for this.
He's a weasel and a half, and he goes even further by sending Eric over to imitate his brother, Eric, and kill Rhaenyra, which is pretty much a suicide mission, and it turns quite literally out to be a suicide mission.
Yep.
That Aegon falls. It's just so stupid. It's such a dumb thing. It almost works, a fewer lines of dialogue, a few lines less of dialogue, and Rhaenyra is dead in this episode. So it almost ingeniously works, to be honest.
Yeah, it almost. I was surprised at how far he actually got in over there. But I liked the scene with Eric and Eric where they ended up fighting. I mean,
you want to get into that now?
As it might be. Yeah, I mean, we can get into it. Like the big thing that I really liked about that scene was that it was too hard to tell what side you're on, and I think in some ways, like, that's kind of how we feel about like the Greens and the Blacks, right? Like, they both have done horrible things, or trying to do horrible things. So like I feel like it's just like it's like audience, pick your side sort of moment, but it's just complicated. It's not black and white.
you're saying the Erics are kind of like a metaphor for the two families in a way. That's a great call out there by you, because you think about it, they are kind of a metaphor. One is sticking with this family who are the usurpers, right? But what's going on in this episode? We're in the aftermath of a toddler being killed, right?
Yeah.
Over a mistake. Now, Daemon doesn't fully acknowledge what he said. And to a point where it was a little obnoxious that Rhaenyra was able to perfectly read exactly what he did without knowing the full details. I don't know if you also were kind of a little bit annoyed when she starts playing Sherlock Holmes. She's saying, "You didn't say that, Daemon. You went over there for the vengeance of this." And she literally plays out the scene exactly how it went down.
Yeah.
And he's there like, "I said Aemond." And then she goes even further and says, "Well, what did you say if they couldn't find Aemond?" As if she would ask naturally that follow-up question.
Yeah.
And he said, "I said no." That's not what he said. He said a son for a son or something like that, right? Or he didn't say a son for a son. He said a son for a son before that in that scene. And I'm of the mindset that they misunderstood what he was going for. I don't think he wanted the toddler killed. Now, I feel like people are going to disagree with me on that.
I think I kind of agree with you. Like, I don't think that Daemon wanted the toddler killed. I feel like they just kind of heard what they wanted to hear.
Yeah, I think they wanted to get paid. Yeah. And I think Daemon probably doesn't even pay them if they come back with the toddler head where he says, "You guys got the wrong, like, what made you think that that's what I wanted?" But to your point of them, what we're talking about in this episode, you have Rhaenyra's side that we feel technically is in the moral right of her deserving the throne. She's been usurped, all that, right? But then now you have this monstrous act on behalf of her key leader, one of her key leaders, that now puts you on the other side of the coin where you're like, well, now the enemies, the usurpers have become empathetic figures because they've had a tragedy occur to them. So now you're torn, even though you know Rhaenyra's the rightful heir right now to this throne. And so you're kind of torn of like, but would you want Rhaenyra because she still has Daemon by her side, right? So there's all that kind of going on. And same with the Erics, and they're perfectly identical. They both look the same. They both have done atrocious acts to each other, and you don't know which one is which, first and foremost. And you don't know, I guess. I knew which one I was rooting for. I was rooting for the one who was protecting Rhaenyra.
Same. Whichever one that was.
Yeah, I think everybody, like maybe 90% of people out there were rooting for the same. But that scene was so interesting and so well done. Even the way it was filmed and blocked in a way where they were jumping on top of each other, one's on top of the other, to a point, and then it's cutting to Rhaenyra and it's cutting to Sir Lawrence, and Sir Lawrence like, which one is which? And you're, as the audience, you're like, I don't know which one is which aside from that gash on his knee. Yeah. But did Rhaenyra see him get gashed on the knee, right? And it gets to a point where one of them dies, and I'm still looking at this Eric, and I don't know which one is he. And I'm thinking to myself, if he doesn't kill himself, they're probably going to have to kill him anyways, because if he is the Eric from King's Landing, he could at this moment just say he's not and wait for an opportunity and then kill her later. Yep. So it was almost he did a mercy by killing himself, really, because what do you do in that situation? You don't know who's who. All you can maybe hope is that they have something on their person that you could check them for and kind of get, but you figured that the Eric from the Red Keep would have thought about that too,
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like they have driver's license back then. Or
Like
that. So I don't know what sort of ID you're gonna whip out here. You're Eric. Your helmet has an A on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Key lesson: if you hire two twins who become mortal enemies and one supports you and the other one supports your rival company, make sure the one at your company is wearing uniform that aligns with the branding of your company. I was thinking, why is she still wearing the old Kingsguard thing? But I guess it makes sense because she should be the rightful queen, right?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, in the end, like they are the Kingsguard, right? Like they're just devoted. One is devoted to the wrong one.
Yeah,
the wrong person.
Where does the PR battle line up here for Rhaenyra versus the Greens here? Yeah. I mean, it works out as a perfect, horrible nightmare of a PR situation with the toddler, but does the rat catcher thing tilt the scale back a little bit? Like, hey,
a little bit, yeah. All the way? Nah, I don't think not all the way. No, I think you're still gonna have support for Aegon, in the kingdom, but I don't think it's as much support as it would have been if we didn't murder 9 innocent individuals.
Do you think there's any moment, because there's a moment where Rhaenyra is looking out the window and she's seeing like these specks of dust, which kind of remind me of Helena on the carriage as she's looking at these flowers coming down. Yeah, I don't know if they did that for that reason, but felt like she was almost thinking of Helena in that moment. Do you think it's crossing her mind to say, listen, like, I want to be queen, but I don't want to be associated with this? Do you think she's thinking possibly on turning on Daemon and just turning him over? Say, hey, this is the guy who did it. This is the guy who's behind it. I had nothing to do with this. I was trying to kill Aemond. He took unilateral authority and did this, and this is a mistake on his part. You know,
I don't think that would win her the points that you're kind of saying there. I just can't, like, that's like removing one of your good chess pieces from the board. Albeit like a wild card, chess piece here, but I can't see that advancing her or winning her any credit back, because it was still something done under her like directive of I want Aemon. Yeah. So no, I don't think that would win her any credit in the people's eyes.
It is a hell of a mistake, but it was a mistake. But if you believe that if it truly was a mistake, because just because the scene cut off there doesn't mean the combo cut off there, right?
Yeah.
So perhaps Daemon was a little more at fault here than we care to imagine. But there is a lack of accountability just in general with Daemon and his rash decision making.
Mm-hmm.
That is dangerous. But it's why we love Daemon, right? Is the reason he makes such an interesting character in the show. Even just the scene at the the council table where she's like, "Who could have?" They think Rhaenyra's there saying they think I had a hand in this, that I would kill a toddler, and then it cuts to Daemon and he's just kind of like turning in his chair, like,
whoops,
looking at Melis over on the other side, or what's her name? Pull up the family chair there, the family tree, the Melis. No, isn't it Melis? What's her name? Rhaenys. What the hell's her name, dude?
Rhaenys?
Rhaenys. Melis is her dragon.
Yeah, I was like, I thought you were talking about like a dragon. I'm like,
no.
I think Rhaenys knows what's up. I feel like
she's cold, bro. She's cold too.
She is. Like, I feel like she and Daemon could team up. Like, if Lord, Corlys dies.
Oh, you think like that?
I don't know. Like, I mean,
like you mean like hooking up with Corlys?
Like such a reserved individual at times. Like she stays out of a lot. But I feel like she could just end up being one of those. I hate to use the word again, but wild card. On the table where like she's just gonna come out of left field, with her dragons or something like that.
Sure reminds me of Lady Stark, bro. I'm not gonna lie, just a little bit. But a little more fierce.
A little bit, yeah, a little more fierce.
Yeah, she's like Lady Stark if she survived all her kids dying.
Yeah.
Where do you think Daemon goes from here? I don't personally question Daemon's loyalty. I personally think that he's gonna go do what he did in season 1, which is he's gonna go win like a key battle or bring a key alliance to the fold. Because Rhaenyra is in a really precarious spot now, where the whole realm has heard about this horrible act and they think she's responsible for it.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's going to be harder to get alliances now that she's seen as like a baby killer.
Yeah. I mean, I would have more trouble following her if I lived back then. I don't know. I was going to ask you if you felt like Daemon's loyalty was in question here. I think Daemon loves Rhaenyra.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think that he's going to turn on her.
I think he loves his brother as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like,
I think he has his flaws.
Dude, this is Game of Thrones. Every character has a flaw here.
I'm talking more in the sense, like, I think he has his flaws. Like, he desires power. He desires, but I don't think his desire for power outweighs his call loyalty to duty and his loyalty. I really do, because he's had opportunities to do it and he hasn't followed through.
He's had opportunities to kill his brother. Like, you're right. Like, he's had a lot.
Yeah.
But he like in season 1, I feel like he kind of accepted the fact that like he's not going to be king. Like it's not his role here.
I get the sense that Matt Smith has a blast playing this character. I get the feeling every time he gets to don the wig and just put on the whole character of Daemon that he has an absolute blast playing this wild card. You just don't know what he's gonna do next, and I don't know if there's ever been quite a character like him in Game of Thrones so far, where you just don't know where his mind is at. I do think there was a moment in this in this episode where he was contemplating putting his hands around Rhaenyra's throat. There was a moment where you could almost hear, like, I think it was a sound effect they did where you could hear like a heartbeat, like kind of speeding up, like when you're getting pissed. And I feel, and the music was heating up almost like when you were, you know, do you remember Daenerys' brother where he says, you don't want to wake up the dragon or get the dragon mad. That's kind of what it feels like, but legit with Daemon. Like there is a Targaryen rage that if you piss it off, like you just cannot turn back on it. We haven't seen Rhaenyra in that mode yet, but considering we've seen Targaryens burn down entire cities, I feel like every single one of these Targaryens has this temper. Probably the further and the more incestuous you get, the more corrupt their personalities become.
It's possible, though Rhaenyra has been pretty tame throughout the first season and this season as well, so I'm not quite sure if and when we'll get that from her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that for a moment too. And, am I misremembering something? Like I feel like he did choke Rhaenyra. Was it like the last episode or was it in season 1? I swear that happened.
Season 1. Yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. Yeah, would not put it past them at all.
Yeah. They both have this fierce kind of loyalty to each other. I don't really foresee her turning on him either. I do think he's heading to Harrenhal. That's like the first spot he's going to secure that.
Yeah.
We got to look at Moondancer, Bela's dragon for the first time, which beautiful, probably the most beautiful dragon that is on the show so far. And supposedly that's a thing. I think that's her dragon that they talk about being like the most beautiful of the dragons, but you see it in the distance. And I don't know what the significance was putting Sir Alan's brother as the one who was seeing the dragon. I don't know how he's going to come into play. His name was Alex, correct?
I think so.
Yeah. How do you think he comes into play? Because you get Alan's character who's offered this position to pretty much head up the fleet for Corlys, right?
Yeah.
Then his brother's sort of pushing him towards this path of greatness. But he feels like such a character who's doomed to die, Alex. Right? I don't know how Alan comes into hold, because you get almost for the first time in Game of Thrones, unless we're going to count Missandei and Grey Worm's story in Game of Thrones, you get the view of what's going on through the lens of the common person, right?
Yeah.
You have Sir Hugh in King's Landing, who has a sick daughter, a wife, and the blockade's about to come and set in on King's Landing. That's driving inflation up. Everybody in the audience can relate to that. You know, she had to walk through the town. She paid like triple what she would pay for a chicken. We do the same these days. And we got no blockade. Anyways, they're about to deal with that. And so you're kind of getting this humanized factor of like, what is the effect of these royals ruling over these common people? Or the commoners, whatever you want to call them. And then on Sir Alan's side, it's the same thing. How does he view this whole lens of this war? He sees a war brewing and a real war at that. And how does that turn out for him? So, thoughts?
Honestly, I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, I thought for a moment he might like die. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen with the dragon that he saw. Yeah, I was like, is just the dragon just going to kind of come down and scorched earth, like just slaughter this single soul? But I don't quite know. I mean, it seems like his brother does not want to go to fight with Lord Corlys. Seems like he's done with it. He's trying to get out of it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he becomes encouraged and tries to go fight because his brother doesn't want to. But I just don't see the relevance of it. I don't know enough of their characters and their like family line and all of that.
Yeah. I think something eventually comes to play with it, but I'm unsure of what it is. I'm assuming Sir Alan will take. I keep calling him Sir Alan. I think it's just Alan. I'm assuming he takes the position, but we'll find out. If you pull up a map of Westeros, it is interesting to see the dynamic of what's going on here. If you want to break it down, strategically, you got King's Landing, that's to the west of Driftmark and Dragonstone, just southwest of them. And then you have the Blackwater Bay, which is the sort of sea, or the bay actually, that's connected to the Narrow Sea. And you have Driftmark, where Corlys is at with his naval fleet. And so there's just kind of like this peninsula that juts out on both sides of King's Landing, where Driftmark perfectly can bottleneck them into pretty much a complete shortage of all supplies, right? Yeah. Unless they're getting supplies from land, like the Crownlands or anything like that. And then you have Dragonstone a little bit northeast of that. So technically, these dragons can pretty easily cover that strip of ocean that goes from, what is that called? Duskendale and what is that? Sharp Point?
I'm trying to find what you're looking at. Duskendale, yeah, and then Sharp Point, yeah.
Yeah, so they can just send a dragon from east to west there and cover all of that. So I'm assuming we're going to have Vhagar eventually go over there and just blow up that entire blockade. That's what you need to do if you're King's Landing. So it's interesting, the dynamics, the geographical dynamics here, because you could technically just send a bunch of dragons over Driftmark and go crazy over there.
I feel like they would make it there in a matter of like minutes. Like if you're just jumping the bay, like that's. I mean, I don't know how big the bay really is, but still.
Yeah, and then Daemon's heading up northwest to Harrenhal, which sort of secures the Crownland area for the Blacks. That's, I guess, the goal there is to secure Harrenhal, which is the stronghold of that area. And then from there, work around and expand your reach, right? Yeah. They've already secured the Arryns, which is the Knights of the Vale, and they've already secured the Starks. So if they can secure Harrenhal, it's kind of like a race for the Crownlands now, right? You have to secure the. It feels like the Iron Islands are always going to be on the side of the usurper. So I feel like they're, for some reason, just always going to be there. But the Riverlands are going to become key here at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like, because if Rhaenyra does win Harrenhal, I mean, King's Landing's kind of becoming very surrounded. Like, you're cutting off a lot of the supply routes. Again, like they can't get out to sea. You've got like almost the whole north would be cut off, right? So I mean, the only other place that we've got, I think, that's still on the tables is it's the west, and there's not too much out that way, and then the Stormlands in the south.
Yeah. What do we think happens with Otto? Because he's gonna now he's gonna go to the to Highgarden to, I believe, talk to the Tyrells. I think the Tyrells are I don't know if the Tyrells are the family in charge there at this point in history.
I believe they are. Yeah.
Or if he's going to go back to Old Town. Because he does mention a son that we haven't heard about in a while, which is Daemon, which is another one of Alicent's sons with Viserys. And he's studying over there in Old Town. Do you think there's a ploy here by Otto of how can we depose Aegon and put somebody who's more suited for the crown in his place?
Probably. I don't quite know how. Maybe Aegon dies in battle out of anger or something like that. Just being foolish. But I mean, I feel like that's what everyone kind of wants, including Otto. Like they don't really want Aegon to be king. Aegon didn't want to be king. I think now that he's had the taste of the power, he kind of enjoys it. Yeah. But I feel like Aemon is probably gonna be. He's like everybody's pick. Like it feels like they're grooming him to be king in many ways. Just even from the conversations that we see between Otto and Aemon. Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that we go this entire season with the Aegon not dying. I find it very hard to believe that he doesn't die in this season. That's just my 2 cents. Whether it's from the inside or outside, I don't know. At this point, I don't know what Alicent and Kristen Cole will do. you think that affair is going to be over, but it's just too heated. The passions are too heated, and there's just no going back for these two. So it just feels so much like they're going to go down in flames. It's really only Alicent who can turn that around in that house right now, which I think that's what we're going to be heading towards here. Why? Because for multitude of reasons, she controls Cole, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, we've seen Cole turn on lovers who have scorned him in the past. So at this point, I feel like Alicent could get rid of Cole, get rid of Aegon if she needs to, and take care of things the way she needs to handle them. Similar to how Cersei kind of was the true ruler of the kingdom behind her sons, right?
I don't think Alicent is that strong.
I think that's where we're heading towards. We're heading towards this woman who was super pious, super into the, I forget which religion she's into. The 7, there's some term for it or something like the 8, I don't know. Anyways, the gods of there's a certain religion that there's like different religions in Westeros. I think there's like a whole book about the religions of Westeros.
Really?
That's out there. Yeah. That goes into the world building aspect of it. But anyways, she's kind of lost her faith. Nobody wants to hear her confession, not even her father. She says, I've sinned. And he says, I do not want to hear it. Which I got to be honest with you, I kind of agree with him. Because the thing that she's going to tell him is so out of line that it does require a response. An actual, like you need to come clean about this. Like, you've broken the oath of the Lord Commander, blah, blah, blah. However, if she would have come clean to him, perhaps Otto doesn't have to leave King's Landing, right? Because what happens? Everyone finds out that Criston Cole is a traitorous bastard who's shirking his duty because he's screwing the Queen Dowager, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets removed from the Kingsguard completely. He becomes pretty much a banished knight. He has to probably leave the kingdom, right? Or get killed, who knows? Because I don't think Aegon's going to take very politely to the fact that Sir Criston Cole is banging his mother. Not only that, but we know Larys the Clubfoot knows this information. And we also know that he has Aegon's ear. And the moment that Alicent does not, the moment she starts to feel herself a little bit, and believe that she's kind of over Larys, that's the moment that Larys is going to probably let that information slip to the king, which is going to result in a whole sort of other things, which leads me to why I said this thing about Alicent, because I think she has a limited window here to right the ship for herself if she wants to preserve herself. And it's to get ahead of that information coming out, right?
Yeah, I just don't think she can. I mean, I think she has the time. I just don't think she can do it. I don't think she. I feel like she's gone too far. Yeah, I think she's gone too far. Like, she's not going to be able to pull herself out. It just does not feel that way. And I mean, everyone around. I mean, her father would not want her to change anything. I mean, like, unless she got Rhaenyra the throne somehow. I can't see her righting her wrongs at this point.
Oh no, I'm not saying anything about righting her wrongs. I'm not talking about doing what's right morally. I'm talking about steering the ship of King's Landing for the Greens and salvaging what there is. They're also salvaging her reputation. I'm not talking about absolution here. I'm talking about who has the last bit of power and who has a limited window to do something about it. It's probably Alicent. But we see that she doesn't really have willpower because she goes right back to having the affair with Criston Cole. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment where she does tell her father, like, when he cools down, I'm going to speak to him. Maybe you can come back, blah, blah, blah. But whose side is she going to take? Because she's still with Cole, and she doesn't seem like she's going to take her father's side anytime soon. So Alicent may be too far gone here.
Yeah. Seems like it.
Seems like the Greens are imploding right when they had this battle won, which explains Otto's frustration completely. This act of Jaehaerys being killed absolutely bags the victory, in my opinion, for the Greens. It gets you the alliances you didn't have, gets you the people who were not on your side. All sorts of things shift in a matter of a day. And they're imploding from within. He gets rid of a wise hand, right? Mm-hmm. The hand that single-handedly put him on the throne, by the way. and he puts a fool as Hand of the King, not only as in charge of Hand of the King, but in charge of his Kingsguard. So that makes Criston Cole maybe the most powerful person in the castle at this point.
That's where I was going. Outside of the king, I mean, he's definitely the most powerful individual, I think, in King's Landing.
I would argue that he's more powerful than the king, because how many times have we seen that the Hand of the King is more formidable than the king himself?
Well, he's also sleeping with the king's mother, so
he has a double agent there. He can feed info. Only thing is that I legitimately think Criston Cole is stupid. I don't think he is actually smart IQ wise.
I don't know. He's
sloppy,
similar to all of the young boys here. Like, he'll have a fit of rage, and he'll do something, and he's not thinking things through. I mean, to the point of sending Eric over. Sure, it almost worked, but it was a foolish errand. Like that was just stupid.
He's sloppy. Just the fact that Otto doesn't even bother to try to argue about it. He just says, God help us. I don't know what he said, but he said something along the lines of God help us, with these two idiots in charge, because it's so great. Yeah. Aegon says, oh, Sir Criston Cole took action. He sent Eric there. Brilliant plan, really. It was what? But you know what? Sometimes the simplest plans end up, being the best ones, because like I said, if Eric didn't bother to turn around to see what his brother was up to, he could have plunged that sword straight into Rhaenyra's heart. Right there. He could have just ran right there across the room, but he hesitated for 2 seconds because we can't have Rhaenyra die this early.
I kind of thought Eric might make it to Dragonstone and then turn to the other side here. I did not fully expect him to try and carry this mission through.
It was too tense. The tension of the episode, the fact that Myseria's involvement. Being allowed to, by the way, if Rhaenyra doesn't free Myseria, nobody catches Eric in time. Rhaenyra dies. That's how any decision in Game of Thrones in this universe leads to somebody dying. Okay, not just that. There's just moments in this series, specifically in Game of Thrones, where you feel like there is some sort of God figure in Game of Thrones who is aligning and ordaining certain things to occur, right? Yeah. Like Jon Snow coming back from the dead. There was not really a solid explanation other than it feels like the Lord of Light brought him back, right? And then his sister kills the Night King, which never makes any sense. But anyways, in this scenario, it feels very much, by the way, the Faith of the Seven. That is Alicent's faith. Anyways.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling that up, sir.
You're welcome.
I was struggling the whole episode. You were watching me suffer. You wouldn't pull it up. Thank you.
I was just enjoying it.
Thanks. You just had me call it everything but the Faith of the Seven. I called it the Faith of the Eight, the Faith of the Nine, anything but the Faith of the Seven. Anyways, what was my point? You distracted me by finally pulling up the facts that I was hoping you'd pull up earlier. Why don't you take it from here, pal? I do all the talking. I do all the points here. Right? Why don't you talk about it?
No, the Faith of the Seven here. We're just talking about the two Erics, the high tension.
What do you think? What do you think Myseria's involvement's going to be going forward? Does she leave? Does she come back and become a valuable force in Rhaenyra's council?
I don't think she'll stick around.
I think she will.
You think she will?
Yeah. Too much involvement with this character. There has to be something more for her.
I feel like we've seen other characters though, where it's like they play their one role and then they're gone.
Maybe, but I think that there's a place for her where she's valuable. It's always good to have a spy master in your employ when you're trying to take over a kingdom, and she has
a lot of inside knowledge.
She has 0 spy masters as of my current count. She has no club-footed spies on her council at this moment. Also, her council seems very shaky. After they got news of the toddler things, it seems her own war room is kind of questioning allegiance to her at this point.
There's a lot of people that are questioning her and whether or not they want her to be queen. So, yeah. I don't quite know what this is going to do for the next episode, but I still think we're a ways off from a really big battle. I don't think we're gonna get one anytime soon. I don't know if you feel different than that, but
I can't imagine it in the next episode. Although I do think that sending Baela over to spy on King's Landing is going to be a mistake. I think Baela probably dies, if I had to guess. I just don't see how that pans out well for her. We'll see though. In that regard, maybe Daemon comes to the rescue there. Who knows? I think that there's going to be like maybe a handful of battles, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of battles. I think it's going to be a lot of dragon action. If I had to guess, like dragons to the blockade and that kind of thing. But I feel like maybe we'll have one or two huge battles. It's not going to be like Game of Thrones where you get the Battle of Blackwater Bay and the Battle of the Bastards and then just a bunch of other battles.
Well, those are pretty spread pretty far apart though.
Yeah, true. True. But how many seasons do you think we get a House of the Dragon? I can't imagine more than a season or two after this.
I could see it being like a 4-season.
I think 4 seasons is like the key amount. But then again, we haven't read the book, so we don't know how long this thing progresses, if it goes down a couple generations or not.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, the show is called House of the Dragon, right? Like it's not Rhaenyra's house or something like that. So, I mean, we could carry this down to what the Mad King, I guess. Yeah.
You think they pitched that in the writers' room? What about Rhaenyra's house? What about?
No, I'd hope not. No.
All right. So prediction.
It would be interesting to maybe see this get carried down like towards the Mad King like era. I could see that maybe being an interesting thing to like tie in the two series a little more closely.
Well, they already started filming Dunk and Egg, which is going to be another prequel series of Game of Thrones. Which I don't think is fair to say prequel series to Game of Thrones, because I think the grand vision of this is for people to see this as just a giant universe of Westeros.
Yeah.
And that the story of Daenerys was one of those stories. But we may zoom out 20 years from now and be like, well, Game of Thrones wasn't the most important story. There was other ones down the line.
Yeah.
Too. I was going to mention something about on that line, because you said it would be cool to see the
Mad King.
The Mad King. Yeah, that's happening. The Robert's Rebellion is going to be a prequel series for sure. Okay. What do you think's gonna happen next episode? We leave off this episode. Rhaenyra has 2 dead Erics in her room. Myseria, I think, probably comes back as spy master, but she could get on that boat and go across the bay to the ocean to Pentos. Criston Cole has screwed his way to Hand of the King and Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, getting rid of his key rival probably within the Kingsguard, who probably could have taken his spot. I think that was probably the impetus for sending him out in the first place.
Yeah.
Pointing all blame outside of himself. Helena's in grief. We'll see how she turns out. She seems to be a pretty beloved queen at the moment. Aegon's still on a fiery rampage. Where he goes from here, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think Aegon knows. Aemond, same thing. How does he react to his grandfather being removed from Hand of the King? We have not seen his reaction to it yet. And whether he thinks it would be a wise thing. I do consider him wiser than his brother, but how much wiser, I think we're going to find out. Alicent continues her affair while just absolutely conflicted about the things that she's done. And I just can't imagine a scenario where Alicent doesn't put the Criston Cole chapter of her life to a close at some point in this season, which probably spells badly for Cole. And just a whole bunch of other stuff going on. Daemon is flown away, hopefully to Harrenhal, but we'll see where. What about?
I think he's flown to Harrenhal. I feel like next episode we're probably gonna get just a bit. I think Daemon will probably win in Harrenhal. I think that'll be a nice bit of support for Rhaenyra. But I do think that we're gonna probably towards the end of next episode see some real action start to take place coming from Aegon's side. I think with Sir Criston Cole now installed as the Lord Commander and the Hand.
Does he give it up? Where does he keep it?
I don't think he'd give it up. I think he'd keep it. I can't see Criston Cole being honorable like that. Oh, he shouldn't have, really.
He's kind of a psychopath. I can't call him a psychopath because he does have emotions, right?
yeah, he does have emotions. He's just an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any wagers you want to make in this episode, or any thoughts? What's our current wager standing at this point?
Our current wager standing. So we did a really big round of Dead or Alive by the end of the season.
Okay.
Aegon, Aemon, Sir Chris,
are we updating? Are we updating anything here? Because
no,
a lot has occurred.
I don't think we can. I don't think we can update our Dead or Alive.
No, we can't update our original answer. But if we changed our mind, because I think we would have both changed our mind by now with what's occurred in the last 2 episodes of who's going to be alive at the end of the season.
Yeah. No, I think we got to stick with our bets here. I guess the question is, do we want to add anything more?
Yeah. No, my question was, what the hell did we say, and what is in reality going to happen?
Oh, okay.
We both said Aegon was going to live.
I'll go through this. So, Dead or Alive, Aegon, I think we said yes, he would die.
Oh, we did. Okay, so we're on track for that. Oh, you don't have to say any more of them. That was the key one I wanted to know. Okay. Did we predict Aegon was going to die? Okay. And so I guess we were right on that. Okay, I think he's definitely going to die for sure.
All right.
He probably dies because he's determined to mount the dragon in battle. He's probably gonna die in that way, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Some stupid, or they kill him on the inside because it becomes too much of a threat.
I think he'll die on the battlefield or something like that. Like I feel like he's having him die a peaceful death in his bed or something like that. It's just not what I see happening at this point. No, I feel like he's gonna make some bullheaded decision and gonna get slain on the field somewhere.
And we're fully geared up for an Aemon Daemon showdown, so that has to occur at some point in the series. I don't know if it'll happen this season, but it'll happen in the series. Okay. Any wagers that you want to add additionally at the moment?
I'm trying. I mean, I feel like, does Rhaenyra win here and all is too cheap. Like, I feel like we'll know that one in the next episode. Nothing's coming to mind right this second that I would want to bet on. I feel like the big ones we've kind of already called out a little bit. Did anything come up for you?
Would it count as a wager if I say I think Daemon redeems himself strategically for Rhaenyra? Is that too?
Yeah, right? I might take the odds on it just to kind of zag a little bit and say that Daemon becomes a threat to Rhaenyra's claim.
Okay.
So I'm going to say Daemon is a threat to Rhaenyra's claim.
I think part of the House of the Dragon is also Daemon's journey for himself. Yeah. Like he has to come to peace with what he's going to do. But all right. I think that just about does it, huh?
I think so. Let's get into a few categories though. Okay. Who's your favorite character of the episode?
Favorite and most memorable might be two different things here, but I'm gonna go Otto.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Otto on this one. That scene where he's just letting Aegon have it was to me terrific.
Huh. Okay. I was actually gonna pick Aegon.
That would have been my second choice. Yeah.
I really liked Aegon in this, and I've been trying to put my finger on why I like Aegon, and he reminds me. He looks like if you were to take Evan Peters from like American Horror Story and Jack White and like merge them together. He just looks like what I envisioned them to be, and I really like both of those individuals. So I just like Aegon. Looks great. Seems like a very interesting guy. To me, would not want to be friends with him though.
To me, he looks like the dude who plays what's this guy's name? Hold on.
For those that don't know, Evan Peters is Tate Langdon, in American Horror Story.
To me, he looks like Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian Stan,
who is he's in Captain America. Not that I'm like huge into
Huh.
the Marvel movies, but that's probably the thing that most people know him for.
Interesting.
I think he looks kind of like him.
If he grew up a bit.
Huh? If Aegon grew up a bit?
Yeah.
Tom Carney's character?
Yeah.
Okay. So categories.
Right.
Other than that, what's next?
Favorite scene? Tough, isn't it?
Man, there was a lot of them. I got two that immediately popped in my head. Obviously, the Otto one where he's telling off.
Yeah, that's the one that comes to mind for me too.
Throws the hand of the kingpin to Cole, which is so fitting that he'd have to pick it up off the floor. I love that. And then the tension of the Eric scene the whole time. You're like, please, someone turn the corner and see that there's two of them. Please. In your head, you're like, there's no way Rhaenyra dies, right? There's just no way she dies right now.
So much closer than I thought.
But it's Game of Thrones, so it's just like it makes you question even what a normal show would do in this scenario.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think those are two good ones. Any lines that stood out to you?
Otto again is the Otto and Aegon really. Otto and Aegon, where Otto says they're peacocks shrieking. I thought that was a great line.
Yeah.
Insolent pup pops up a lot. I think I'm gonna call like my niece that when she starts to act. You insolent pup.
Oh jeez.
That's a great little like thing to say to like a immature kid.
Yeah.
Anyways, what other lines? I also liked Aegon's line where he says, "I have dared, and I feel stimulated," or something like that. Yeah, I feel stimulated.
That one's like good. I also liked Aegon's little what was it? Oh, I hanged them. Line when he was talking to Otto. Yeah,
the Ratcatchers. I hung them. Yeah, that's it.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah. You know who Kristen Cole reminds me of? Something he does like with his mouth, like looks like very slobbery. I don't know, like you know what I mean? He looks like one of those.
Looks like a dog.
Yeah, he looks like a mess.
Yeah.
He reminds me of Billy Kimber from the way he speaks with his accent.
Okay,
feels very like rough around the edges, like just a slob. Anyways, I think let's start the Kristen Cole hate club.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single person who could watch the show and like that character. Even the actor who plays him hates his own character. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Every time he reads the script, he's like, "Son of a! How do you make me worse?"
Yeah, it's like, how do you make me more hateable? That scene where he's forcing Eric to stand up and go change his robe after a whole like an all-nighter is ridiculous.
So bad. I can't stand him.
Everybody out there thought about some oppressive boss they've had in the past, for sure, in that scene.
Somebody popped in your mind.
For sure, yeah. All right. That's about it, huh?
That's all the categories.
Did you answer the question on favorite line?
I did. I liked it was stimulating line that you mentioned, and then I liked
and I hung him.
I hung him.
Yeah.
It made me chuckle.
I like the line that Sir Hugh's wife says to him, where he says all the people are starving and pretty much the castle's like loading up on stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says it's good. And he's like, we wouldn't do that. And she's like, it's good that we don't have enough money to find out.
Yeah.
Pretty much she's like, wouldn't we though? Wouldn't we if we had the money?
Yeah.
So, all right. That's all I got.
Cool. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of House of the Dragon by Story Archives. You can find this podcast anywhere you find podcasts, Apple and Spotify podcasts primarily. You can visit us on YouTube at SoapBox Podcast Network. Visit a website at soapbox.house. Email us at contact@soapbox.house. And there is a link in the description below to sign up for our newsletter.
Until next time, enjoy your week, and we will see you next time. Also, The Bear comes out this week. I'm really happy, excited about that. Very excited about that. So,
okay.
Peace.